Hello, friends of Latin, or salvete, amici Latini. This week we're going over Lesson 8 in your Latina Christiana books. Lesson 8 is on page 26. Before we begin, I will want to review over Lesson 7. In Lesson 7, we went over the vocab and we said our second declension masculine chant. Now, normally we just use the endings for our chant, and we go over what is a stem of a noun and what are the endings. Now, for our ending chant, it's us I o o, us I o o, us I o o. Second declension masculine, I orum is os is. I orum is os is. I orum is os is. Second declension plural. That is our second declension masculine chant. Now, these are second declension nouns. Second declension nouns are just declensions, for the parents and students who don't know, are just the way that the ancient Romans separated their nouns. It is quite simply this. They separated their nouns by letters. They organized their nouns by letters to make it easier for them to put their nouns in different parts of the sentences or cases. We learned the cases previously in the last unit, but they're nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, and ablative. Quite simply, cases are just the different parts of a sentence we learn in English grammar. It's just a fancy word for them. For example, nominative is the subject noun. Anything in English that is your subject noun there too. For example, Bob runs. Bob would be your subject noun. Your genitive would be your possessive noun. So in English, we would use an apostrophe S. So Julia's bag. Julia's would be your possessive noun. In Latin, we can use an apostrophe S when we're translating, but better yet, and a better way to get kids to recognize this and translate into is of Julia, using that prepositional word of. Next, we have dative. Dative is just a fancy word for the indirect object case. Dative is usually translated to or for the, in whatever the noun is. To or for the, whatever the noun is. For example, if I give a gift to Julia would be your indirect object. And how we translate indirect objects in other languages as well. We use to or for the. Next, we have the accusative case, which is just a fancy way of saying the direct object. So in this sentence, Bob gave Julia a gift, or the gift. The gift would be your direct object. And that is how we translate into English from the accusative case. We use the whatever noun, in this case, gift. And finally, we have the ablative case. The ablative case is a special case that uses prepositions. There are other prepositional words in Latin, but by, with, and from are the most commonly used prepositions in Latin. So they get their own case, their own part of the sentence, by, with, from. And so we call that we call ablative the by, with, from case, or just the prepositional case. Now, on this page, is page 24, is chapter 7. It would be servus, servi, servo, servum, servo. with the noun endings and the stem there. Servi, serorum, servis, servos, servis. This would be the whole word going through each part of the sentence. For example, nominative singular would be the subject noun servus, and accusative singular servum would be literally the direct object, the servant. Okay, so you would saying, if you say servum, you're basically saying Julia gave a gift. Let's rephrase this. Let's make it a different noun. For example, gift, donum. And for donum, it would be dona for the accusative ending. So you would say, Julia gave Dona a gift. And that would be your direct object. Okay, so the reason why this lesson took so long to teach is because we're starting a new concept, which is putting a noun with a verb in a Latin sentence. Before, we only had one word, which is just the verb. We used amo, which meant I love. And in and of itself, that is a sentence. But now we're adding a noun to that. So we're going to be saying the servant loves. So servus amat. And so this last lesson, I was helping the students recognize how to say servus amat, the servant loves, and how to say the servants love. So if you look towards the nominative plural, servi, and then we go to they love, amant, we would go servi amant. If you look on page 25, we went through section C and D over something of this caliber. If your child did not finish section D here, maybe you could help them, if you can, trying to translate those words, it's singular only, into English. Now, for the lesson next week, we are going to be starting lesson 8, which is on page 26. Your Latin saying is Senatus Populusque Romanus, or the Senate and people of Rome. I love teaching this Latin saying because it has populusque, or that que at the end. There are multiple ways to say the word and in Latin, but que is one of them, and it's just a fancy way of adding to the end of a word to put and there. So it would be Senatus Populusque Romanus, the Senate and people of Rome, or SPQR. And this Latin saying honestly starts our journey into studying and learning about ancient Rome. I have a big flag at the back of my classroom, which directly comes from the ancient Rome flag, which is what they carried when they traveled all over Europe. And on every centurion or 100 soldiers, they would carry this flag. Our vocabulary is animus, animi, mind, spirit, animal. Aquila, aquilae, eagle. Aquiline is the derivative. Corona, coronae, crown. And the derivative for that is coronation. We have fabula, fabulae, story. The derivatives for that is fable and fabulous. We have gladius, gladii, sword, gladiator. We have ludus, ludi, game, school, ludicrous. We have mora, more, delay, moratorium. We have murus, muri, wall, mural. We have pecunia, pecuniae, money, pecuniary. Populus, populi, people, and the English derivative popular. I've already went over your second declension case endings. This would be specifically second declension masculine. On page 26, the chart literally gives you the servis, servo, servum, servo chart from the last lesson, but they separate the endings there. So we are still studying these endings with the Latin chant us eo o, us eo o, us eo o, second declension masculine, e orem is os is, e orem is os is, e orem is os is, second declension plural. And then we're also trying to recognize the stem from the endings. So you notice that serv, S-E-R-V, is the stem there. It's always the same. As we say in Latin, Latin is a language of stems and endings. So the stem tries to stay the same, especially in nouns, and the endings change according to who or what is using it. On the worksheet, we go over review phrases and sayings, and then we go over grammar. Grammar, section B, is just grammar questions that we are learning in class. For example, what a nominative case is. Okay, for section C, we go over translation, circle the Latin plural endings, and then translate. So they're asking you just to circle the I for nominative plural on those Latin words. And then they want you to translate them in the plural. For number 1, gladii, you would circle only that second I, and then you would translate into swords. For section D, we are continuing putting together a subject noun, a nominative, and a verb together. This time, we're working with singular and plural here. So the students will have to recognize what's the difference between singular and plural in a noun and in a verb, which is why it's taking a little bit longer to teach these lessons in the time that is given. And then finally, section E, derivatives. Derivatives are just English words that are based in Latin. And they don't necessarily have to be English. There's a lot of languages that are based in Latin, and every single word in those languages that are based in Latin are called derivatives. These are just English derivatives. Number 1, gladiator. Who fought in the Colosseum? Ooh, Colosseum. We have to think about that, and you would go back to what would make sense on the previous page, which would be gladiators. This is what we are going to be teaching about this week for lesson 8. If you're gone or missing or anything like that, please let me know, or if you have any questions on the work you're supposed to be doing, please let me know and email me. Thank you, and I hope that you have a good week.